Okay, I'm finally at the tops.
What in the
Time to
goddamn?
pay a little Benny a
Get this
visit
improved,
and
eh?
ask
Smooth
him if
moves,
he
like
can
smooth living
politely
babies.
return the platinum chip. Oh, wait a minute. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
I can't do that, baby, and you know it.
It's probably something I
There's
can
a
do
lot of
later. Hang on.
angles to this caper.
A few moments later.
Good to meet you.
Okay, now I'm talking with the yes man. This is gonna be splendid. Oh, should I go with the anarchist run, or maybe support Mr. House, or actually Mr. House is kind of a jerk, but actually a lot of people are jerks in this. Maybe I should go NCR. I'll think about it. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Good question.
3 days later.
All units, be aware we are.
Well, finally a campaign completed in Fallout New Vegas. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Hey, you're finally awake. You need to finish the top 10 for Fallout. Universes beyond.
Oh crap! I forgot. But I actually prepared in advance for this, editor. Let me get it. Picked this up in the wasteland and such, so I believe the top 10 should be in here on the nifty little PIPBOY. Hang on. Wasteland guide. Gonna need that for a minute. Hang on. Caps. Here it is. The PIPBOY. Wait, this PIPBOY is not complete. Hang on, maybe there's something in the notes of that Wasteland Survivor Guide. Oh wait, someone made a crease in here. Hang on. Dear reader, yes, you did got the top 10 recorded on the holotape. Don't worry about it. You can play it on the PIPBOY, partially complete. Note to self, though, don't procrastinate and play video games and actually finish your tasks. But it's Fallout. Still, nevertheless, good to know that I have that note. Okay, let's see. Where's that holotape? Aha! Okay, holotape. Let's see. Let's get the PIPBOY. Okay. It's been a while since I did the compartment on here. Hang on. Here we go. Here we go. Top 10. Doo-doo. Make sure I put it in right. Okay, now we just need to press the button here. Try to configure at least as much as I can with this partially complete PIPBOY. And, wait, why does it say Albert on here? Yeah, you can't probably read it from here, but nevertheless, let us talk about the top 10 cards from Beyond Universe Fallout Edition for Magic the Gathering. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Top Deck Thoughts, Fallout Edition. For this episode, we're actually going to be talking about my top 10 favorite cards from the upcoming Magic the Gathering Universes Beyond set, Fallout. Now, for those who don't know, this set consists of 4 commander decks, as well as essentially the possibility to pull collector boosters, which includes kind of like bling variations as well as shiny variations of cards from the commander decks, as well as some few exclusive variations, but this ain't a product video, so we're not going to go into all details on that, but there is some really cool bling you can actually get for your commander decks that are from that. Nevertheless, though, we're going to talk about our top 10 favorite main cards of the set itself, aka the cards that came exclusively in the Commander decks. Now, for those who don't know, I absolutely love Fallout. I played pretty much almost all of the series. Didn't complete all of them. I'm pretty sure I didn't complete Tactics, and I guess the one that I did avoid playing was Brotherhood of Steel because, well, it's Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. Have you actually seen the gameplay of that game? Not the greatest entry in the series. There's a reason why it's usually kept out. Let me put it like that. But nevertheless, I personally love Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. I also just love playing 1 and 2, just as like an interesting relic of seeing kind of like how top-down RPG designs are essentially made. And the series itself is just a wonderful series with a bunch of great characters, all trying to survive within the setting, which is essentially, well, take 1960s Americana, brew it with a little bit of the Atomic Cafe, throw a nuke on it, bloop, bloop, and just essentially see kind of like the world of tomorrow surviving against nuclear Armageddon. It's a great setting. Just a bunch of unique ideas that they did in it, and it's still a very popular series. Even the fact that we're getting the Amazon show upcoming in next month, I believe. Nevertheless, as with the intro gag, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here, so let's actually talk about the top 10. Now, I'm going to say this right off the bat. Doing the top 10 for this was hard. Because the designers kind of nailed it again, like they did with the Doctor Who Beyond Universe Commander, as well as Collector Boosters. There's just a lot of really good cards that they designed in the set. A lot of, like, very flavorful, very powerful, and potentially very, very fun cards to play with in the upcoming set. It was so hard to actually make a top 10 for this that I literally had to put the good doggos in the honorary mention.
You need to leave!
For those who don't know what I'm talking about both Dog Meat as well as Ret. Dog Meat, just a very good kind of like Naya Voltron-based commander with a little bit of a regrowth attachment to it if you go into a flicker-based strategy, as well as Rets, which is just a good generation of energy, as well as just acting kind of like a scavenging ooze that also has a little bit of a necrotic ooze thing where it can steal abilities from the creatures that it technically eats up. Or, as the flavor is, it's essentially getting more brain matter to essentially think of the thoughts and the matters of, I could go on how that's very flavorful with Reds. Like, seriously, there's a lot of really good flavor in this set. But let's get through the honorary mentions real quick as well, besides Dogmeat and Reds. We also got to talk about all the reprints. There's a very bunch of good reprints in this set. There's stuff like Mechanized Production, Pitiless Plunder, a very lot of just like a valuable reprints, and even reprints that are only in the collector boosters that are very good, like Ravages of War. If you're April and you like land destruction shenanigans, I mean, yeah, you know. As well as just a bunch of very good reprints that actually help make the commander decks just seen very well. Also, on the honorary mention, I am actually going to put my preview card, which is the Watchful Radstag, as well as the couple reprints. It was just fun to get Wizards to give me this opportunity to preview these cards. I had absolute blast cooperating with my editor, as well as Grimcorp, as well as Cole, essentially to make the little animation video for the Watchful Radstag. It was just an absolute blast. But I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here, which, to be frank, anybody who ever played the Fallout series, that's, well, let's be frank, that's kind of typical. And let's actually get to the top 10 list, shall we?
Number 10.
Number 10 on this list, and honestly, I gotta put this villain on the list just at this spot because the flavor win of putting him here. Yes, I'm doing the number pun here for this number 10, but also it's just a very powerful card, and that is Agent Frank Horgan. Ooh, this card is very silly. Now, for those who don't know, this is actually a famous villain within Fallout 2 that essentially, hated muties and was apparently a big super mutant himself with power armor, which, oh, and also all his stats are 10 in special, which, made this a pretty formidable foe if you didn't know what you were doing. And it's kind of the same thing here with this card. Now, this card is pretty much a big chunk of stats, but let's talk about that ETP and attack trigger. ETP and attack trigger proliferate twice. We all know how powerful Proliferate is. For those who are new to the game, Proliferate is the ability that when you proliferate, you put any number of counters of any type, +1, poison, planeswalker loyalty counters, etc. You essentially put as many counters on many permanents that you decide to target with the Proliferate ability. So essentially, Proliferate twice is a relatively very powerful ability within Magic because it allows you to make your creatures bigger, make your planeswalkers closer to their loyalty, or even if you are infecting your opponent, gets closer to the 10 poison counters that are needed to knock your opponent out. But most importantly, the thing that is going to be important within this deck design, with the Mutant Menace deck, other than buffing up the creatures, is of course interacting with the Rad mechanic and making your opponents get more Rad counters, which is going to make them mill more and lose more life, which, yeah, that's pretty good. Not to mention just the fact that when it attacks, it essentially gets indestructible, which is a very powerful ability, which makes attacking with this card not really risky. The only con is that unless you have like a Lightning Greaves card, you can't really attack immediately when you play the card, so it is prone to removal. But you do get the ETB, and still Proliferating twice is very good. Nevertheless, I do think a lot of people are going to consider putting Agent Frank Horrigan within their deck design. Without a sweat. Just be careful and don't try to throw a toe at him. Trust me.
Ha ha ha, you pathetic fool. Ha ha ha. Wow, I haven't laughed like that for a while. Anyway, get ready to die.
Eep.
Number 9 on this list, and it's quite a mysterious addition. You know this when you activate your VATS, and you get that lucky chance. We gotta talk about the Mysterious Stranger. Now, this one seems a pretty chaotic, but overall it's actually a relatively pretty strong card. Sure, 4 mana free 2 flash, that's perfectly fine, that's a nice little combat trick, but let's be frank, you're doing this for a little bit of chaos of luck because the factor that you can exile instant sorcery spells from each player's graveyard, and be able to flip a coin and figure out which spell you get to cast for the low price of 3. There's a lot of very powerful instant sorcery spells in Magic, and just being able to have the luck of the chance to draw them and cast them for free with Mysterious Stranger, perfectly great. But there's even some times where Magic in general, there's just overall in Commander, just great value spells that people cast in general, like your Cultivates, your essentially Path to Exiles for removal, your early game, kind of like Ramp and such. And even then, the Mysterious Stranger, all it is, it's just essentially just a ramp spell. You just exile 2 ramp spells. It still does relatively get the job done at flash speed and being able to be a surprise blocker, which is pretty good. But let's be frank, you're also going to get a little greedy and hope that you can get some of the more high value spells that people play in Commander. Breach the Multiverse, anyone? Nevertheless, it is random. You do have to play accordingly, but I do think this is a very powerful card that I think is going to see a lot more play than people will think. And that's why the Mysterious Stranger is my number 9th card on the list. Now, I just need to figure out if he's actually a time traveler or if he actually is a Eldritch Being. It's Fallout lore stuff, guys, and gals, and everybody in between. It's a long story. Number 8 on my list, and this one is pretty simple. When we talked about number 10, how Proliferate is a very strong ability, it's pretty obvious why Radstorm is on the list. I don't think I have to explain myself. It's Proliferate and Storm. For those who don't know, Storm is an ability that pretty much this spell when cast will copy itself for each spell that is cast before the spell was cast. Storm has been a relatively very powerful and busted mechanic within Magic the Gathering, to the point that Mark Rosewater has the Storm Scale, which should probably give you an indication, for those who are new to the game, how busted the mechanic can be. Trust me, anytime you play against Legacy, you're going to see a Storm deck at least sooner or later, and you're going to see how silly Storm can actually be. But even then, this is just a great spell to even just hold up to get ready for the Proliferate triggers, because this also tracks spells that your opponents cast. So let's say you hold up 4 mana, your opponents are going into a big counterspell wall and such, casting like 2, 3, maybe even 4 spells, maybe storing off. You have a couple planeswalkers or big chunky creatures with counters on them. Do yourself a good old Radstorm and then make those creatures more chunky or get those planeswalkers closer to their quote-unquote final ability, or their ultimate, so to speak. Or, nevertheless, if you're playing Infect, you could also just wait till you can storm off and kill all your opponents with Infect. Yeah, that is why number 8 on this list, come on, it had to be Radstorm. Now I just have to be careful of the radiation.
7.
Number 7 on this list, and I'm kind of cheating a little bit since we're going to throw 7 cards on number 7, but you will understand why, and that is the whole bobblehead cycle that all spell out special. S-P-E-C-I-A-L. Special. Trust me, there's a whole song that literally people did with Guardian to the special in Fallout. Go listen to it. I think it was from Dan Bowl, if I remember correct. Anyways, specifically, the reason why these bobbleheads are relatively strong is because they essentially incrementally benefit one another. The flavor here being that once you collect all the bobbleheads, you get a lot stronger. Here, the bobbleheads itself get individually stronger with how many bobbleheads are on the battlefield. The one that mostly people have been kind of like saying that is kind of the talk of the town is obviously the luck bobblehead, since it is an alternate win condition. Granted, you do have to make sure you collect all the bobbleheads or get additional copies using stuff like mechanized production to roll enough dice to hopefully win. But still, if you ever win from it, you do get the talk of the game, essentially. But still, nevertheless, you are also just ramping, which ramping is just relatively good, especially if you have 3 to 4 bobbleheads on the battlefield. Of course, the most powerful bobblehead of the bunch, without a doubt, it has to be the agility bobblehead. Just being able to make creatures have the Gingerbread haste, can't be blocked by other creatures without haste ability, is really strong. And being able to target multiple creatures so you have multiple bobbleheads on the battlefield, absolutely absurd. I would say the only worst one of the bunch is probably the Endurance bobblehead. It's not bad, but the fact that you only activate at sorcery speed means you can't really use this as a combat trick. So you're more kind of using it kind of like how you use the agility bobblehead of just essentially being able to attack in with creatures without them dying, which... okay, fair enough. It's kind of, I guess it's a little element of redundant, I guess, for lack of a better word. And all the other ones are relatively good as well. The Perception one, just being able to essentially dig into your deck and get more bobbleheads or get other free cost spells. Very good for the low price of free. As well, just Intelligence is just, well, you draw cards. And Strength is just putting counters on things, so... Nevertheless, all the bobbleheads are just very fun. It's going to be a fun brew round to make the quote-unquote bobblehead commander deck. I definitely have a brew along with it, as well as with another card that's on the list, but that's a little bit of foreshadowing. Nevertheless, number 7 on my list, come on. We all in Fallout 3 in the future had to collect the bobbleheads, so it has to be the bobbleheads.
Number 6.
Number 6 on this list, and this one is quite a refreshing addition, which is the Nuka Cola vending machine. Now, at first glance, this looks like a very innocent design. It's like, oh, we'll spend some mana to essentially get some Nuka Cola. We're going to sacrifice the Nuka Cola, gain some life. We get ourselves a treasure token, since within the Fallout lore, bottle caps is actually the currency that people use throughout the Wasteland, so this seems like a perfectly innocent and clean design. How can this be absolutely busted? A lot. Okay, let's get started with this. Okay, now, you think it's going to be a relatively balanced card because the token comes in tapped, the treasure token, but people forget that there's a lot of ways to do Arcane token, kind of like modification cards. We're talking about stuff like Academy Manufacturer. Make it when you make that food token. Oh, by the way, you're now going to make a pretty much a clue and a treasure token. Oh, and then when you sacrifice that food token, when you make that top treasure token, oh, by the way, you're also going to make a clue as well as a food token as well, which then you can sacrifice that food token to get more treasure, which then gets you more clues, like that. And that is not the most busted thing you can do. The most busted thing you can actually do is with, of all things, Peregrine Took. Now, for those who don't know, Peregrine Took is a character within Lord of the Rings that got his own card within the following Universe Beyond set that came out last year. I think a lot of people are seeing where this is going, but for those who don't, let me elaborate. Now, let's say you have 3 food tokens and Peregrine tokens on the battlefield. You sacrifice those free food to essentially with Nuka Cola vending machine on the battlefield to draw yourself a card. Well, now Nuka Cola vending machine is going to look at that and be like, oh, I'm going to make 3 treasures because you get some bottle caps. Boop. And then now Peregrine Token's going to look at that and be like, oh, hey, some tokens have been made. I'm going to make more Nuka Cola. Boop. And then now you're going to sacrifice all those Nuka Colas for the Peregrine Token. Boop. Then you're going to make more bottle caps. Boop. Make more Nuka Cola. Bottle caps. Nuka Cola. Bottle caps. Nuka Cola. Like, this is an infinite loop that can do absurd shenanigans. It can allow you to draw your entire deck out if you have, like, Fossil Oracle or Laboratory Maniac shenanigans. But even then, you're just making a bunch load of artifact tokens, which we have impact trimmer variations such as Reckless Fire Lever and some other variants of essentially impact trimmers for artifacts, that then it can be very relatively easy just to pin your opponent down. Yeah, Nuka Cola vending machine looks cute and innocent, but it's not so innocent. It is going to cause some shenanigans. One could even say that it can be quite a bottle cap mine, I would say, because you're going to have some explosion of value, which is also going to cause a lot of pain to someone, to be quite blunt. And that's why number 6 is Nuka Cola vending machine.
5.
Number 5 on this list, and this one is kind of a no-brainer, but it's a relatively powerful card, and that is the Alpha Deathclaw. This one's pretty simple, to the point. It has an ETB, destroy target non-land permanent, which is very strong, as well as being able to use the Mana Sink and the Monstrous ability to be able to do that again, as well as buff up the Deathclaw, which already has decent stats as well as keyword abilities. This is going to be a pretty significant threat within a variety of brews that have Gagari-based colors within them, or just multicolored brews in general. You just never want to mess with the Deathclaws. You never want to mess with the Deathclaws. There's a reason why in New Vegas, you'd never start out by trying to go straight to New Vegas, let me put it like that. And that's why number 5 is the Alpha Deathclaw.
Number 4.
Number 4 on this list, and this one I'm going to cheat a little bit again, but this one makes sense when you consider the lore. Number 4 is Veronica, as well as her mighty Power Fist. Now let's start with Veronica. Veronica is actually one of my most anticipated cards to actually put in all things my Gimbal deck. One of my pride and joys, my little babies. It's actually a really good card to put in the deck to be able to get another artifact token to help make big gremlins. And just the fact that it's an artificer is great, because the fact that it triggers double triggers with Roaming Throne, which is absolutely great. So yeah, being able to constantly have the attack trigger to loot, as well as just to make junk when you loot stuff that is non-land permanents, great. Absolutely great card for a great character within the New Vegas game. And of course, what's Veronica without her Power Fist? Now, Power Fist, this one is pretty simple why this is on the list. Just a ridiculously powerful equipment, just essentially being able to attach to a creature, give it trample, and then when that creature pretty much deals damage to your opponent, you're gonna put counters on the creature. Yeah, so you make your creature more bigger, which if you put that on your commander, can just get it very close to being able to play One Punch Man against your opponent, dealing lethal commander damage. That is pretty good. So yeah, number 4 on the list, we gotta have Veronica, and of course with Veronica, we gotta have her Power Fist. Number 3 on this list, we're gonna cheat a little bit again, and mostly because both of these scary enemies come from the Fallout 76 universe, as well as just really are good synergistic with one another. And that is the Face Commander, the Mutant Menace deck, which is the Mothman, as well as the scary late game threat within Fallout 76 original campaign, which is the Screeching Scourge Beast. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the Mothman. Mothman is just a relatively very good and kind of fair as well as powerful card. Just being able to get a 4/4 Hill Giant with flying that gets all your opponents, including yourself, a rad counter. Very powerful. Being able to make your opponents force mill and lose life potentially is very good. As well as the fact that it's an attack trigger, so you can keep increasing the rads on them, which is very good. And just essentially being able to make your creatures get bigger and bigger, with the fact that if your opponents mill any non-land card, ridiculously absurd. I have seen some decks that essentially play the Mothman, and I've seen some pretty much early game access streams where people play that commander, and it gets silly really quick. And let's be frank, it's going to have a partner in crime, and the partner in crime has to be the Screeching Scorch Beast. I mean, come on! Have you seen this card? Not the fact that it allows to also essentially benefit when you opponents mill and such, and being able to get the 2/2s. Ridiculously absurd. And the factor is that it synergizes with the Mothman, since the Mothman is going to mill with the rad counters in general. But the scariest part about this card, it doesn't even have to deal with the rad counter mill mechanic. If you have like a ridiculously big mill spell, like we're talking about the Traumatizers of the Worlds, you can potentially generate a lot of board presence with this card. This beast is literally a freaking beast. When you see this card on the battlefield, be afraid. Be very afraid. And also be afraid of the Mothman. Specifically, no, the Wise Mothman is relatively peaceful. Just be careful of the other ones that have different eye colors, like red, and I think it's yellow, if I recall correct. Nope, I didn't play much Fallout 76, so just be a little bit cautious. But nevertheless, number 3 on my list has to be the Wise Mothman and the absolutely terrifying Screeching Scorch Beast.
Number 2.
Number 2 on this list, and this is probably going to be one of my favorite kind of like potentially brew round commanders of the set, and that's gotta be Moira. Now, Moira, for those who don't know in the series who have never played Fallout 3, this is a quest giver that essentially is an offer of the Wasteland Survival Guide, aka the book I got right here. And essentially, you actually, throughout the Fallout 3, assist her to make this Wasteland Survival Guide possible by doing the most irrational stuff that you can do within a campaign. Get yourself highly irradiated by drinking the water from the nuclear bomb? Go right ahead. That's a quest. Try to go travel to a park and hopefully you don't get hit by a landmine? Go right ahead. Get yourself totally injured as possible to just show kind of like how you do the restorative stats and then just help her, Moira, take notes about it? Go right ahead. But we're talking about Laura. Let's actually talk about the card itself, which is ridiculously flavorful. The fact that essentially whenever you attack, you get a quest counter, which makes perfect sense. You constantly get quests from Moira and such. And the fact that when she enters the battlefield, you get yourself your Wasteland Survival Guide as an equipment is absolutely flavorful. And the fact that you essentially be able to more or less get quest counters, essentially the bigger that this equipment can get, getting even to the point of potentially being silly Nettlesis shenanigans, which some people are like, well, wait, how can you do that? You're just going to only get one quest counter from Moira, right? Yes, but here's the thing. There's a lot of cards within Magic the Gathering that actually generate quest counters, including one card that's actually going to be really good in the list for the Commander deck, Pyromancer's Ascension. Now you can use those quest counters that you're generating from Moira, put it on Pyromancer's Ascension, and then get to the point where you can actually copy your spells. Oh, there's also a Luminarch's Ascension, which anytime your opponent doesn't deal damage to you, you generate a quest counter. And there's a variety of cards within the Zendikar block that generate quests, as well within the main Fallout set itself that also generate quest counters, that literally, this book is going to get chunky, and if you have an annoying Deathclaw, hang on one moment, you can essentially be able to do a lot of damage with the power of a book. And that is why Moira is my number 2 card in the set, without a sweat. I cannot. It's probably going to be one of my first brew round commanders. I'm absolutely excited to brew around her. I'm not going to lie. And of course, it's going to be the list that's going to have all the bobbleheads, because, come on, one of the quests you have to do is collect all the bobbleheads as just your personal side quest. Come on. Come on.
Number 1.
So, what is my number 1 card of the set? what do I think is my personal favorite and potentially the most powerful card in the set? Is it one of the Precon Commanders? Is it one of the cards that essentially is a secret gem? What is the card that is the quintessential tool that you are required to play within the Fallout game? Okay, come on, it's the PIPBOY. Let's be completely honest, let's not cut to the chase, it's the PIPBOY 3000. My number one card is the PIPBOY 3000. So, for those who don't know, the PIPBOY is essentially one of your essential tools within the Fallout series. It's essentially a thing that you will constantly be equipped with starting up the game, and just being able to use it to manage your stats as well as just level up and do a variety of things, inventory management, etc., etc. And the PIPBOY 3000 is a ridiculously strong equipment. Just being able to, whenever you equip it to a creature and they attack, get those attack triggers, that's essentially a charm. Being able to loot, being able to put a counter on the attacking creature, or even just being able to untap up to 2 lands, which essentially makes where equipping is technically free, as well as just the potential shenanigans you can do with untapping. Like, let's say, for example, you're playing the Shia that makes all your creatures into forests, which are lands, so you can untap your creatures with this. And we're not even getting started with the Ishin shenanigans, or pretty much the Gagari, or not Gagari, the Gruul variant of Ishin, that I always forget the name from, but it was from the Dungeons and Dragons set. Someone's Crow's probably going to put it over here and such, but nevertheless, I think it's like Wolf something. Nevertheless, doubling your attack triggers with the PIPBOY on, being able to double loot, double put counters on something, double, just essentially being able to untap up to 4 lands with the double attack trigger, just absolutely absurd. Also, it's a 1-mana equipment, which means that it can easily be tutored by Urza Saga without a sweat. Like, a lot of people have been saying that this is the number 1 card of the set, and I can't blame them. This card is actually a very good card. Like, let's be frank. This is a card that essentially gives you a charm when you attack with it, the creature equipped with the PIPBOY. And not deal damage, attack. So, absolutely absurd card. You're going to see a lot of creatures equipped with the PIPBOY, whether it's the Samurai from Ishin, or even some random ones like essentially trying to equip, I don't know, a Deathclaw with a PIPBOY, which, I don't want to be the dude or do that or in between that tries to do that. Let me put it like that. But nevertheless, my number 1 card of the set, come on, it has to be the PIPBOY 3000. And that is my top 10 favorite cards from the upcoming Universes Beyond Fallout set. Personally, I love this set. I can't wait to play with all the new cards. They are just legit fun designs. Even the ones that weren't in the list, I still can't wait to play with because they have nifty little interactions with Gimbal or even other potential new brews and such. There's just a lot of fun designs. WotC nailed it out of the park again with this. I love it. I'm pretty much going to get all the commander decks as well as hopefully get a PIPBOY variant of my preview card, the Watchful Rat stack, because I gotta have that for my collection. And nevertheless, that is my favorites. Now, what are your personal favorites from the set? Write them down in the comments below. Say hi. If you want to, you can also support this channel as well as my thoughts on Twitter and other platforms using my Ko-Fi account. Nevertheless, I hope you all have a lovely day. As they say, hip hip hooray.